My name is Leon Pinkett, and I'm the Executive Director CEO of the Baltimore Arts Realty Corporation. In the third chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes in the Holy Bible, the writer, described simply as the teacher, declares, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. In this seemingly innocuous verse, the writer establishes a sacred connection between mankind and the work that he or she performs by declaring that work and the fruits of it are a gift of God. Most would assume or agree with little debate about the supernatural connection between the sovereign and the work or actions that God performs. But rarely do we appreciate that there is also a divinity in man's work. From the Jewish belief that work is sacred and represents a partnership between God and man, to the Islamic concept of Khalifa that frames social justice under the context that for justice to meet its fullest expression, it must promote an environment of workship. Yes, workship, where work is held in such high esteem that to God it is translated into worship. The Khalifa therefore creates an environment that denies no person the access to God that work presents, and where each individual is provided with all of the faculties needed to realize their maximum potential as Khalifa. That through this concept and the sacredness of work, every person would have the privilege of and resources to serve themselves, their families, and ultimately society. The divinity of work in Judaism, Islam, and Christianity leads me to believe that this concept is not foreign to any of the other faiths and represents a principle that just might be universal. God delights in man's ability to work, desire to work, and the product of work. And where one might debate the merits of the proverb that cleanliness is actually next to godliness, there is seemingly no question that work is. It is near to him, it is dear to him, and to deprive one of it robs them of a preferred position with God. This belief that God can be glorified in our work would lead one to expect that those same religious perspectives would be resident in the cultures and societies where those faiths are most prevalent. But upon close observation, it appears that the unfortunate reality is that those divine notions of work are just that, notions, that are at best aspirations and at worst fantasy. But why? Why do our practices and policies concerning work rarely reflect the divinity that work begs for? You don't have to practice Judaism to appreciate that economic empowerment requires that we all refrain from the sodomistic practice of hoarding of wealth, a wealth that is the result of the resources that come from God, to which He has only assigned us as faithful stewards and not owners. You don't have to practice Judaism to appreciate that economic empowerment requires that we all embrace the responsibility of ensuring dignity in everyone's work, being confident in the fact that if we do this, we align men with God by making them covenant keepers and not covenant breakers. For those who have been enlightened and recognize this divine connection between man and work, what do we do? How do we spread the good news that work is not bad or evil and something to be endured, but is rather something to be celebrated, an expression of the creative collaboration between God and man? For one, we must ensure that everyone, no matter their ethnicity, gender, educational attainment, economic status, zip code, you name it, has access to the training, education, and resources to allow them to achieve their highest potential of work, their highest worship, so that they might take full advantage of their general and unique talents and abilities. Approximate to that, we must also make certain that there are ample opportunities for the expressions of those skills through work in settings that value the worker personally and financially, extinguishing any signs or any hint to shame that might be associated with their titles or positions. In closing, the Hebrew word eved, meaning work, and avoda, meaning prayer, are etymologically the same words, confirming how close work and prayer are truly aligned. If we in our respective places and communities and organizations do our part to restore the sanctity of work and ensure its dignity and accessibility to all, then work will not just be the same word for prayer, it will be the answer to prayer.